Well, there's a bit of a saying in life, and it rings true a lot in fishing, and that is the grass isn't always greener. A lot of us travel to exotic locations expecting really good fishing, and sometimes that is the case, but today we're here on Sydney Harbour in the shadow of one of Australia's biggest cities, and the fishing this morning was nothing short of hot. It was good, really enjoyable, a lot of fish, and it just goes to show with the nets that have been out of the harbour and recreational fishing, catch and release, and obviously all the fish we've caught today is west of the Harbour Bridge, which we will release all these fish. It just goes to show that there's a booming fishery right in the shadow of one of our biggest cities, and you can go out and enjoy it. I mean, 5 minutes from your work office and some people's houses is some of the best fishing this country has to offer. So just goes to show that you don't have to travel far from home to have some really good fishing, like right on your doorstep in the shadow of a big city. I think Luderick fishing is somewhat of a forgotten art these days, with the modern days of soft plastics, gel spun lines, and obviously your trophy species like jewfish, snapper and marlin and that. The old Luderick just doesn't seem to rate on a lot of people's radars, but it is very enjoyable fishing. I mean, today the weather's quite bad, it's windy, we've had a few showers, and to be honest, you probably couldn't have chased any of them trophy species anywhere around Sydney today, but we come down and we fished for the Luderick, and it was quite enjoyable. And they do put up not a bad fight on the light tackle, and obviously if you catch them in you know, east of the bridge or in other systems that are cleaner, they are good table fare as well. So might not be a fish to be sneezed at by the younger generation. If the weather's bad, maybe give Luderick fishing a go.
That's all right, I'll get my hands dirty, mate. Don't want you to get that sand in that thread line of yours.
What's the secret ratio?
It's about 4 to 1.
4 parts sand, 1 part weed.
Yep, that's the one. Do you want to pour a bit of water in? Get it nice and moist. It's not sloppy rigging. What it does, it serves a purpose. I like to slide my weed in down and underneath that tag end, loop it around, twist it a couple of times down the shank one way, down the shank the other way. You got yourself a nicely presented bait. And probably leave about 4 centimetres off the bottom of the hook. Mate, you can go with any gear you want. I like the traditional stuff. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older, maybe it's what I started fishing with, but you know, you can use the lighter stuff, the newer stuff, the braided line. I like using the floating line. If I don't have the floating line, I'll rub a bit of Vaseline on it. And it's a real simple, cheap setup as well. You don't have to go all out for this style of fishing. $5 float, a couple of sinkers and a couple of small hooks and you're away. What you want, to get the best out of your float, what you want to do is, it's called having it at the point of neutral density. So you don't want it sitting too proud, otherwise when a fish takes the bait, it'll feel too much resistance and spit the bait. You don't want it too low, otherwise you're straining your eyes trying to watch the float. So there's a point there, and by adding and taking off split shot, you get it to that point where a fish chewing on the bait, just got to pull it straight under, and it's a matter of letting it go down to about 1 foot under the surface, and hopefully you'll be able to sink a hook in it.
So we got here about 6 this morning, and we had the tackle already fairly prepped up, so it only takes a couple of minutes to put a float rig on and get your hook on and get some burley mixed up, and by about 7:30 I think we'd already had a couple of fish each in the bag. So a 6 o'clock start with a run up tide just here in the harbour, not far from the Harbour Bridge, and good 1.5 to 2 hours, and we got at least half a dozen fish each. So it was good fun before work, and you can go to work and it just makes the work day go so much better if you've spent the morning doing what you like doing and having a bit of fun.
Unexpectedly compact, uncompromising reliability, unbelievably fuel efficient, unbridled power. Mercury Mercury has delivered a new range of 75 to 115 horsepower four-stroke outboards, unlike anything the world has ever seen. Unthink everything you know about four-stroke.
Yeah, so one of the techniques if you're going to go polaroiding carp on fly, first of all, yeah, a good set of Polaroid glasses, because that's what's going to let you look through the glare on the water, and you can see into the water. You'll see the fish, they can be cruising. I mean, in this clear water now, you can see fish 20 metres away. So yeah, you're looking for them, you're looking for them feeding, and they can rise to the top. So obviously if that's happening, you can fish them dry fly, and then other times they'll just be head down and vacuum the bottom, and you can see a plume of mud come up. So you'll actually cast in front and strip that fly back, and we normally use a bead head fly so it will sink reasonably quick. Pull it past their face and they just jump on it straight away, 9 times out of 10. They can be suicidal some days, and then other days they can be as wily as the wiliest old brown trout. So, but yeah, pick a day, a blue sky day, a little bit of wind, it's not too bad, but Polaroid glasses, that's the key ingredient, because you've got to see the fish. We're sight fishing, so we're finding the fish, cast to the fish, strip it past them, yeah, and it should come up tight. So that's basically all there is to it.
So when you're targeting the carp, using basically trout gear, anything from a 6 to 8 weight rod, floating line, 6, 10-pound leader. And they seem to eat, you know, woolly bugger streamer style flies like this. But one of the interesting things that's happening with the carp fishing is that some anglers are actually targeting them on dry flies. So the carp are actually coming up and eating the flies off the surface. And from what I understand, and I'm no expert on carp fishing, that's a pretty unique thing. So we might get a chance to do that today, you never know. But yeah, the basic technique is you walk along, you spot the carp, and they're usually swimming around in the shallow water looking for food, and then you make a cast in front of the fish and let the fly sink, and then when the carp comes a bit closer, you give it a couple of quick strips or small strips, and hopefully Mr. Carp comes over and takes it. And they are a powerful fish. You know, the ones here in this dam are anywhere from 3 to 7 pounds cruising the shallows, and they'll get you into the backing, no problems at all, and they fight pretty hard. So yeah, for an introduced pest species, if you want to get a bit of fishing fun, they're a pretty good option, the old carp.
Yeah, it is good fun fishing. It's, as I say, it's a shame that they're here because they're destroying our waterways, and as time goes on, they just get progressively worse and worse. Their numbers are increasing, you know, in the hundreds of % after flood events and that. So yeah, best thing we can do is fish for them and remove them from the environment, and hopefully one day we will have a control for them and we'll see them disappear from our waters altogether.
Mighty Mud Marlin. Not exactly a prestige species, but not too many things pull as hard as these in the fresh water. In Europe and Asia they're a prize sport fish, but here in Australia they're a pest. Can't blame the fish, but they shouldn't be here. So this one's not going back. We've spent the past couple of days down here at St George's Basin on the New South Wales south coast. Didn't really have a game plan, just sort of came out to see what was going on, see if we could find a few fish, show the boys around. What we did end up finding was some brim on a flat system, and they were in about 8 feet of water just off the edge of the flats. We got a few there yesterday afternoon, and we went back this morning and the fish had gone. We got a few flatties but no brim. So we moved to another flat system and found a couple of fish on the edges of the flat again. And it's interesting to note that they really were focused on those edges of the flats. Couldn't really find in the deep water when we were blading and soft plasticking. And on the flats themselves, which were about 2 or 3 feet deep, there didn't seem to be any fish there, but the ones we did get were all along the edges. So it's a great technique, find an edge and fish it. The fish are often there. I felt him just tap it and it loaded up. Oh. Nice little chunky shallow water brim. I changed the lure to a more natural colour. I had a sort of a pink one on before, and I've changed it down to this little eco gear. Natural sort of looks like a little mullet or something like that. Had a couple of hits, and this guy hooked up. The great thing about these southern estuary systems, you can spend a bit of time burling up and catching a feed, and then head out and have a bit of fun with some lures. When it comes to shallow diving hard bodies for brim, there are literally 1,000,001 choices. All the major brands make fantastic lures. If you're interested in this style of fishing, your local tackle shop should have a wall of selections you can choose from. One of the things we found with our fishing down here at the last couple of days is the fish were sort of hanging in the mid-zone between the flats and the deeper water, so they were on the edge of the flats. So a shallow diving lure seemed to work better. It got down above the weeds and scooted along on top of the weeds instead of burrowing right down or being on the surface. So if you're interested in doing that sort of style of fishing, then a lure with a shallow diving characteristic is probably preferable to one that gets down really deep, because you will end up getting snagged in the weeds. So a bib design like that, a shallow diver, and then a deep diving lure has a wider bib like that. So most of the major brands have got shallow diving versions of their popular deep divers, and they're worth having a few different choices there for this style of fishing.